Simpler is better. I think this is better. Hey there, this episode of Some Gadget Guy is brought to you by viewers like you. Yes, you! All of the amazing people sharing content across social media, and the heartwarming generosity of all of my patrons on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. More info on those incredible nerds later in the video. Okay, the folks at Vivo sent this my way to test and review. This is the Vivo V50. Vivo's camera-focused mid-ranger, and immediately I'm happy to see fewer versions of the V series this year. So far, covering this line of phones for a while now, it's a wild product to keep tabs on. There's a shotgun approach to mid-rangers where in one calendar year, we could see as many as 7 different V models. Even last year, we got 4 flavors of the V40. This year, when Vivo reached out, they only sent this, the V50. It makes talking about Vivo's mid-range a heck of a lot easier. I think most companies this year, we're not seeing the big risks. And Vivo's offering is also a little on the conservative side. It's an iteration on the design we saw last year. But everyone is going a bit flatter. The sides here, they feel a little thicker. There's less of that thin rail feel that has defined the V series and reminds me of phones like the LG Velvet. It is not thick and the sides are rounded, but there's a bit more to hold on to here, especially when you're trying to use it like a camera. The front and back are still a little curvy though. I mean, it's not just the sides. It's what Vivo is calling an equal depth quad curved display. It's not just the sides, top and bottom. It's a really pretty look. It's subtle, but not an extreme curve. Just a nice little accent. Now my unit is called Mist Purple, with a pleasant iridescent quality to the back plate. A nice, big, pretty screen, which seems similar, if identical to last year's V40. Better than 1080p resolution, very good outdoor brightness, HDR10 plus certified, and that all-important 120Hz refresh. These phones won't scale down much though. There's a smart mode that should switch between 120Hz and 60Hz, but it very rarely reports 60. Even looking at a photo, often you'll see 90 Hz. We're not expecting mid-rangers to have those screens that can scale all the way down to 1 cycle per second, but for folks who want to save a little battery life, you might want to go in and manually just set this to 60 where it still looks real good. There's an in-display optical fingerprint sensor. It's a solid performer, just ergonomically, I think it's a little too low for a phone this tall and skinny. And the haptics haven't really changed. It's one of the few feels where this reads as a mid-priced option. That really fuzzy motor as you're typing or you're getting alerts, it's decently powerful. You'll feel it in a pocket, but I like something that's just a bit more precise for tactile interactions like typing. And of course, that all-important speaker test where you listen to different songs from other creators over compressed YouTube audio and then sort of nod along and say, yeah, those sound pretty good to me. But snarkiness aside, no, the speakers are solid. They're gonna fill a small bedroom decently well. Good separation of tone and articulation. You can still catch little bits of that bass riff, so we've got some low frequency there. It's not gonna outperform a $1,000 phone, and I don't think it's supposed to, but we're in a good sweet spot in that middle part of the phone market. Man, I'm just feeling silly on this one. So taking that peek under the hood, Vivo is siding with last year's V40 as the template instead of the V40 Pro. Like last year, we get a Snapdragon 7 Gen 3. Again, a very respectable mid-ranger chip and with a large cooling solution built into the back of the phone for better stability. We'll talk about performance later in the video in just a bit. I'm reviewing the 12 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gig storage version of the phone, and I'll lay out all the specs here on the screen. I hate reading specs in videos. Point for point, it's just a solid all-rounder option. A very expected build for a nice product in the middle of the market. Manufacturers aren't really challenging consumers this year. From increased component prices to potential instability in distribution and tariffs, it seems every company is playing it safe this year. The big upgrade is a small but lovely quality of life improvement. Real important. I need you to keep telling your family they probably don't want the most expensive phones on the market. I'm not joking. I'm serious. Pause this video and turn to a parent or an aunt and an uncle and ask them, if they would like a 15% lift to CPU and GPU compute power, or would they want 20% better battery life? Pause this video, turn around, ask them, come on back when you're done, and drop the responses you get down in the comments. I love leaning on car metaphors. There's a reason why a lot of consumers don't buy hyper exotic sports cars just to take the kids to school. The Vivo V50 gets a 9% increase in battery capacity over the already long-lived V40. But on a Snapdragon 7 series, things like idle power draw are roughly half what you would see from a phone rocking the most powerful Dimensity or Snapdragon 8 Elite. Doing nothing, which a lot of phones are just sitting idle waiting for alerts in our pockets, the V50 is going to last a lot longer. It's pretty crazy. This has a 20% larger battery than a Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus and uses a lot less power when covering the basics of a communication gadget. It is incredibly easy to run this as a basic communicator, tweak a few settings, maybe scale the screen refresh, and arrive at a 3-day phone. Don't forget what your relative said when you asked them that question. They are spending more to get features they don't need or want and to have to charge their phones more frequently. It's a lose-lose-lose. And when you do need to charge, we get a tiny nudge improvement here too, moving from 80-watt fast charging to 90-watt fast charging. And like I held this box up at the beginning of the review, it's also worth pointing out that the V50 does come with a pre-applied screen protector, a protective case, and that delicious 90-watt charger is in the box. We like the thick, chunky boxes that actually come with valuable accessories. It's really a shame that we don't talk about that stuff like it's sexy or cool or fun. It's the practical stuff that people really need to live with. Someone could use this phone for 3 days, plug it in for 20 minutes, and then go another 3 days. And isn't that more valuable to a huge swath of consumers than getting 5 more frames per second in Genshin Impact? So no one is excited that we have the same chip year over year, but given the compromises required to keep prices low in 2025, I think Vivo made a good choice to focus on increasing longevity, because the camera situation is also a tad conservative, and I think we're in fine shape. We don't have that triple cam that we had on the V40 Pro. We have 2 solid sensors on the V50. Vivo still carries a reputation for excellent photography, and they're confident this phone earns that little Zeiss badge on the back housing. It's just a bigger step from the V50 to the X200 this year with nothing in between. I really enjoy the Vivo processing and shooting style. It reminds me a lot of how messy the LG camera apps used to be, which makes this a very full-featured app. The auto mode stuff is great, really solid manual modes, and I think a phone like this will heartily go toe-to-toe with a Pixel or Galaxy A series phone and often come out on top for the imaging. We're not quite in the same league as a non-pro iPhone, but we're pretty close in a wide variety of shooting situations for a lot less money. Most things here are covered very well, but the special feature for a V series is portraiture. The Vivo V series stands apart not just with good software features and fake software bokeh, but with the Auralite ring flash. Last year, I was really disappointed that the surface area of Auralite had shrunk. And this year, I guess they heard me. The ring is bigger again. Spreading out that LED light with color tone adjustments. It's not just an intensity of light, but a good spread of light that makes it a bit more useful in lower light situations. It's a nice fill, especially for shots where a night mode might not work. There's something special about this phone because it really is at its strongest when you are taking pictures of someone else. The Zeiss options for portrait modes are really fun to play with. There are settings to dial in different focal lengths as crops. We can change up the quality of the bokeh. It's a lot of the stuff that makes a premium or ultra-priced Vivo X series stand out against other premium phones. I was hoping to see a few other practical additions, like maybe 4K video at 60 frames per second. We still top out at 4K 30, but it's a respectable video quality for this tier. The sensors are good for any price and should give the main cameras on a Galaxy S or a non-pro iPhone a respectable run for their money. Even into a 2x crop from that main camera, we get really good detail and exposure. Now, the weakness against a more expensive phone is that upper zoom range, where you're just cropping more and more and more information away from that main sensor. Out to a 10x zoom, images have already fallen apart. But that's why this Vibe is so fun and unique. This isn't a great option for the person sitting in the cheap seats in a stadium trying to shoot good photos of action of players down on the field. This is a camera that offers you some of the best potential to take flattering images of people in a wide range of lighting conditions at any price. If you like making people look good in your photos, a Vivo V series will outperform a lot of other more expensive phones. It's always worth remembering that photography is not just one thing and should not be graded on a simple linear scale of gooder or badder. Every phone has a different collection of pros and cons. All right, we're starting to wrap this up, and I'm happy to see how FunTouch has evolved. The skin on Vivo phones has grown up a lot over the last 2 years. There's still a slightly older Android 11-ish kind of feel to things like the notification shade and your settings, but the animations are more fluid and the gestures are clearer. We expect customizations like a little side dock for shortcuts. And the funny thing is, I'm a little more positive on cloud AI features when we talk about mid-ranger phones. Like this goofy but cute little kind of add-on to the box, now comes with AI. It's here, it's in the box. All of this AI marketing is so silly to me, because what's the point? What's the point of selling me the most expensive phone of the year with the most powerful chip of the year when you send that information up to a data center? Here, on a mid-ranger, medium powerful chip, you can still get an exceedingly similar cloud AI experience compared to a more expensive phone. So if you're really into the AI stuff, why spend more? The on-device stuff is already well-catching premium phones, like you long press to cut out a subject in a photo, basic speech-to-text transcription, practical, locally processed experiences. And this chip is a known entity. It's not going to blow your doors off for gaming, but it's really not difficult if you just turn down a few of the graphic settings in more demanding titles to keep a high, consistent frame rate. Something we definitely need to be focusing on in our reviews, but Vivo was a little cagey about their support promises in our reviewer kits, but they are promising 5 years of fluid performance. I'm taking that to mean we probably won't get a ton of OS updates, but if Vivo can keep up with security patches and bug fixes for 5 years, that's really good. There are a lot of times I would rather a company stay with an older version of Android, but continue to improve and polish that older build rather than put out a new OS number because they need to, but they're not optimizing that new OS as well. And that brings us to the end of this video, where Vivo's solution here is it's in the same weird spot as so many other manufacturers this year. It is not an overwhelming upgrade over the V40. I would not recommend anyone flip a V30 or a V40 for a V50. It's a second year of Vivo delivering a very similar experience. The small quality of life improvements are nice, and it shows that the V series isn't decaying, but we're probably not motivating someone to really flip a year or 2-year-old phone for this newer mid-ranger. Still, people gotta buy new phones, and maybe coming from an even older mid-ranger, or maybe you're upgrading from a less expensive entry-level phone, the V series continues to make a strong photography-first argument for shopping in the mid-range. And now that I've heaped all this praise, now that I've said all this in this video, I really hope we don't see Vivo release a whole other trio of V-series phones later in the year. This is good. It's real good. You should just stick with this. And even if Vivo does, I will happily take them all for a spin for review. And the folks who get to see the results of my testing and my reviewing first are my amazing patrons. All of the folks on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. The list of names scrolling by on your screen right now. A huge thank you from the bottom of my heart, as these are the people that are helping to keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab. They're basically the coolest geeks in the universe, so I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me across the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere, but these days I'm trying to spend a bit more time on the Mastodons, a little on the Blue Skis, A lot less so on the Facebooks and the Instagrams and threads. Definitely none on that dumpster fire site. And I will catch you all on the next review.